Values? Yep. Thanks for the music there, Mark. Thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Elise Little. I'm the Customer Success Executive here at Lumiant, and I'm also joined by Mark Ackroyd, Head of Advice Delivery Strategy and Innovation. We also do have two special guests joining us, which I'll introduce shortly. But before we get started, I just wanted to go through a few housekeeping items. So today's session, it'll run for 60 minutes and it is being recorded. And we will share this with you after the event, as well as put it on our support centre. So the chat functionality, it will be open throughout the whole session. So please use this to ask any questions, put any comments. We would love to hear from you throughout the session. So what I would like to do, just to make sure that chat function is up and running, also to make sure that you can see my slides. If you could just pop in a message in the chat where you're joining from, just let us know where you're dialing in from. While you do that, I'm also going to ask Mark if you can see my talking value slide okay.
Got it loud and clear. Well, perfect. Loud and clear doesn't necessarily work for visuals, does
it? Loud and bright.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Hi, Anthony. Thanks so much for joining us today. All right, perfect. Well, glad the chat is working. So as mentioned, please feel free, put in some chats. We're going to be doing some live role plays. We're going to be having some questions and answer sessions. So please just put in some notes along as you go. So with today's webinar, it's going to be on discovering your client's values with Lumiant. And I'm going to take you through how to introduce a value session, how a value session should be run, the top values cards in Lumiant, what they could mean for your clients, and also the art of asking why. Gosh, tongue-tied today. So to help us with today's session, as mentioned, we've got two special guests. We have James Williamson, Managing Director on Financial Advice for Millhaven Financial Services. And we've also got James Wortley, CEO and founder of Enlightened Financial Solutions. It's great to have both of the Jameses here, as between them, they have a vast bank of knowledge and experience, both within the financial planning industry, as well as experience in running a value session in Lumiant. Thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate both of you jumping in.
Thanks, nice to be here.
Thanks, Elise.
Welcome. I'm excited to have you. It's really great to be able to have you here to share your knowledge and your experience throughout today's session. So thanks for coming on. And while we've got you, as mentioned, if you've got any questions along the way, pop some notes in the chat and we can help to have these addressed. Oh, perfect. We've got some people coming in from Perth. Hi, Veronica. And also, I think I see New Zealand. Oh, hey, James, New Zealand as well. Fantastic. Okay, so before we kick off, I did want to start with why values matter. So we all have values that we live by. They are motivational drivers that help us to determine what's important in life. They give meaning to the things that we do, and they're individual to us, and they do guide our behaviour. So understanding our values, it can help us to make better decisions, and that's why they are essential to financial planning. Values are our guiding principles or guardrails, and they can help us to keep things on track to living our best life. We want to help you uncover what is really important to your clients and then chart a course to meet their life's ambitions. So in a world full of financial products, this customer centricity, it's a significant advantage. So the value of great advice, it has nothing to do with beating an index or picking the next best stock, which we can't control. Clients really value their life goals and actually reaching them. So this is why with Lumiant, we focus on really getting to know your clients, what they value, and helping you to discover how you can help them to live an extraordinary life. I did want to open this up to the Jameses. You've been conducting values-based advice for some time now. Can you tell me, why do you focus on values instead of beating some index? And I might go to you first.
Sorry, me first. Yeah. Well, so for values point of view, I think, indexes are really just a tool to get you where you need to be, and they're part of that process. The values themselves are so fundamentally important to why we're doing what we're doing. I really look at the values as really like a compass that really tell you, at any point in time, are we on the right path to doing what we're trying to do? We always start here. We talk to clients about, ultimately what you're trying to achieve. What are the values that underpin that? What are the objectives and goals? So goals, we believe, are what you pursue. Objectives are what you achieve. And then we move down into the strategy and then down into the tactics, which are more the day-to-day things thereafter. So we try and set that hierarchy for clients so they understand what's the most important thing and what we need to attack first. And you can't do any of the strategy, the objectives, until you understand what the values are, what's actually driving you down that path.
Perfect. Makes sense. And yourself, James Wortley, I guess, why do you focus on values instead of beating some index? Similar to James Williamson, or any different views there?
Yeah, very similar. But I suppose even going back when I started my financial advice career, I used to be in banking. And the reason why I actually moved across into financial advice is because I think as a financial advisor, you can make a real difference in people's lives. So banking, it was all about doing a product or whatever it might be, and very sales culture. You might laugh when you actually say, okay, I moved over to the bank financial advice area as well. But that was the main reason why I actually got into financial advice. And that's the one thing that I think has been lost over the last, probably 15, 20 years. But that's where values-based advice is all about, isn't it? Making sure that you fully understand your client. So it's not just understanding what their financial position is, but what are they trying to achieve in life? And that's where values is so critical, because everyone's got different values. And it can be a big range of things, whether it be how they want to be able to live their best life, to the way they actually want to invest their money as well. People have got different values as well. Who are the people that are really important into their lives? So you've got to have that values conversation to be able to understand that you're actually going to provide the best guidance for a client to live their best life.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. And so what I wanted to do before we, I guess, jump into a values conversation, there's going to be a few things that you do need to do before you actually, kick off and get started. So just wanted to highlight a few of these things just to set the scene. So before you actually are going to go into a values conversation or that values meeting with your client, you do want to ensure that you're going to have both both members of the household coming to that meeting. So if you've got two people in a household, it's really important that you have both of them present. So you can capture this into the Lumiant platform and select who is the CFO and non-CFO, so the scene is set right from the start. You'll also want to ensure that you have sent the Your Life survey to your clients and that they have completed it before the meeting as well. Then before your meeting, during the meeting, before you get into that values conversation or even being able to introduce it, there's a few things that you want to start to discuss. So really you want to make sure that you acknowledge the reason why the client has reached out and that you have that ability to help them. You do want to address the client's burning issue or any boulders that they've come into the office with as well. You would want to thank the client for completing the Your Life survey and touch lightly on their results. And then this is when you would start to introduce a value session. So we covered in a previous webinar discussing your life results with your clients. So if you do need some help with this, jump into the support center and you can just review our previous webinar, and that will help you to set the scene a little bit more as well. So once you've gone through and started to prepare, this is where you're going to be able to then start to introduce a value session. So touching lightly on your clients, your life results, it's a great segue between their initial fast brain responses to that deeper values conversation that you're about to have. And you can explain to your client that part of what you'll do today is go a little bit deeper into what sits behind the Your Life scores. We've put a little bit of a script together, but again, this is just something that you might want to consider when you are introducing a value session to a client. But you might want to say something along the lines of, we're passionate about understanding what your ideal life looks like, and that's your whole life, not just the financial side. And to do this, we're going to do a card exercise that will help us understand your key values. By understanding your values, it helps us to create meaningful goals, which will become the guardrails of your financial plan to achieving your best life. And this is just the beginning. So as we work together in the coming years, we'll keep coming back to these values as the foundation for your advice. So again, this is just one example that you can use to introduce a values session to a client. You might like to come up with your own that suits your business, the type of advice that you do. But when working on your introduction, you might like to consider some measurements of success to include. So perhaps, include understand what your ideal life looks like, determine you can afford to live that life, and protect yourself from life surprises. But we do often get questions asked, from advisors around how do other people introduce a value session, or, how can they make sure that they're introducing a value session well? So while we've got some experts here that have probably done this hundreds of times now, I thought I would draw on their experience on how they actually, or how the Jameses introduce the value session to their clients. So James Williamson, I might start with you. How would you introduce a session to your client?
Well, obviously, a lot of the tools that you provide, we use, of course, the survey. We do provide a series of emails that go out to the client prior to the initial inquiry. As the initial inquiry comes in, then there's a number of emails that go out. All of this is a stepping stone towards that initial values conversation. Initial email goes out with the survey. They complete the survey. We then have an initial phone call with the client. It's about a 15-minute call, no more generally. And it's really just to get a clear understanding of what they're trying to do. As you mentioned previously about, there might be some burning issue that they want to get off their chest, and we can sort of touch on that in that initial call, but not necessarily solve that issue there and then. But it's really just about acknowledging it and saying, yeah, okay, that's important to you. We understand that, and then taking it from there. After that, we do send out an email that explains the whole process to the client, so they have a clear understanding of what the process is. We run a 2-meeting process. Some do 1. We find the 2-meeting process works well for us. The first meeting is that values conversation, and they do know before they come into that values conversation that there won't be necessarily a financial solution at the end of that meeting. Yeah, I think it's important that they understand that, because some clients do come in with certain expectations, and you want to make sure that they're not coming into a meeting with certain expectations that you can't provide or won't provide because of your process. And then after that values session, we've dived, I suppose, as deep as we can on the values. We then have another meeting with the clients where we present those values back to them, and then do the proposition for how we're going to assist them going forward. So that's how we do it in a nutshell. It seems to work quite well. We've always had pretty positive feedback off the back of the first value session. I think if clients are new, they don't know what to expect anyway. But it's generally been pretty positive people saying things like, well, I'm not sure what I was expecting, but maybe I wasn't expecting that, but it was all really good. So yeah, so that's how we do it.
Perfect. And look, I like how you have said that you're speaking to the client beforehand, so you're really understanding what they're coming in for. You're understanding the boulders or the burning issues that they've got. They know that you're there to help them, but you're also kind of answering the questions that the client might have going through their mind before they even come in and meet with you, because you're really explaining the process there. So that's fantastic to hear. And James Wortley, do you introduce a value session in the same way, or are you doing something different at your practice?
Yeah, we do things a little bit differently. Probably for the new clients, we've got a separation between new clients and existing clients. But for our initial clients, we'll do the same thing as James does. Have a good conversation with them for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, have a good understanding with, pretty well scratch that itch. That's really critical. When people actually ring, they want advice in relation to a certain area. So that's a bit of the start that we do. Where we bring values is a little bit different compared to James. We actually bring our values conversation in 6 months' time rather than doing it up front. And the reason why we do it is we're just used to the process. So we do a 1 interview process for all our clients. So number one, we've got all their financial information. We're talking about their goals. So we're still not covering off values, but we're talking about their goals and what's really important to them. And then as part of being a client of Enlightened Financial Solutions, we'll actually charge them a monthly service fee over the 12 months. So that contract means, okay, what's the advice that they're actually here for us to be able to do in the first part? We start doing that advice. And where the values then comes in is that within that 6 months. The 6 months then, we do it a little bit differently, and we've actually come up with a bit of a pitch deck for our clients. So just talking about, okay, we're now actually going to go through, we've covered off all your financial information. We understand where you are. We've already given you a couple of sets of advice that we've actually provided to you. Now we really want to get into the deep nitty gritty of what's really important and how you actually live your best life. So we go through a little pitch deck, only around about 8 or 9 slides. And that sort of comes back onto that guardrail concept where we've got a couple of pictures there. Again, clients actually work really well with pictures rather than words. And the picture is just a bike riding into the sunset, just this beautiful straight little road with no guardrails there.
Yep.
And we know life's not like that. It has, yeah, there's always bumps, there's water, there's people going off the highway. It's all over the place. That's what life is all about. And this is why we have a job as financial advisors as well, because we need to be able to be adapt and be really agile with the advice and support that we give to our clients. But what it does, it actually frames what the reasons why we actually provide advice. But the second part is that it's our number one client value proposition, why we're different than every other financial advisor, is that we want to make sure that we are a values-based advisor, that they know that up front. But we've got an understanding with, okay, look, products, we're talking about the benchmarks and things like that. That's really the last thing that we actually deal with. It's all about how do you live your best life and how can we actually do that? So number one, we need to be able to understand what that is. And again, with James, we actually send the video out to clients. So they've got the video, they've already gone through the Lumiant, they understand what they're actually getting into. This is just a quick way of actually just framing the meeting, and probably takes less than 5 minutes to be able to do that. So frame the meeting and then we jump straight into the values conversation.
Perfect. I love the idea of a pitch deck because, as you said, it really helps to explain to the client, what you're doing, what you're going to be covering off in the meeting in an easy to understand format, that anybody can really pick it up in your practice and sort of explain it as well. So I'd like to throw it out to the audience. I'm not sure if this is something that you might be using in your practice at the moment, or if this is maybe like a bit of a new concept. But just throwing out a bit of a poll, if you would like a Lumiant pitch deck, if you feel that this would be helpful for you, if you would want some training around it. We've got a yes so far. So yeah, please let us know if you would feel a pitch deck is something that you would really like. So far, everyone, perfect.
That's one of the quickest polls we've ever done, Ali. That's good, right? So we're keen to build support material that helps make everyone's job easier to have what we believe is one of the most important financial advice discussions you'll ever have. So if we can provide a pitch deck, then that's all good.
Yeah, and the other part, just to add on that, it's a scaled approach. So if you've got, like for us, we've got 6 financial advisors in a business. We want to make sure our financial advisors are doing the same thing. So it's reflecting the quality of advice and the processes that we do as a business. So having that process driven, it just makes it so much easier. And again, more scalable because you've got that there. You don't need to change it, but you now got a process that actually works really well.
And you got everyone on the same page, and you all be able to, communicate and share that same value that you can offer your clients. So Perfect. All right. Well, we've got some homework at the end of this. We'll definitely look at getting something put together that you can use and share with your clients, and we'll get some training together around it as well. All right, excellent. Do you want me to share those results, Mark, or we can just poll?
Yeah, I had them up before, I think. If I didn't, it's a Zoom error by me. But 100% everyone said yes, no one said no. So we definitely have homework to do, Alicia.
Perfect. All right, excellent. So what I want to do now is just do a quick overview of how value session is run. Just to give you a bit of a summary though, so the Your Values takes the client through a deep dive activity. It's aimed at understanding what they truly value in life and connecting that money to the meaning. So the values exercise, it will create the guardrails that we've all spoken about so far that inform a client's choices at key turning points in their lives. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to jump into my Lumiant screen just to make sure you can see my Lumiant page platform. Perfect. All right, excellent. So when you first come in to do a value session, this is what you're going to see first of all. So this is where we ask the client to imagine it's their 90th birthday and looking back, what are the 3 things that they'd like to say about their life's achievements? This is just a short exercise and it's designed to prime the client to think about past regrets or future aspirations that they may have. So what you will do is go through, you might say to the client, looking back at your life, if you were 90 years old now, what are the 3 things that you'd like to be able to achieve? Oh, sorry, say about your life achievements. So what will happen is the non-CFO is going to go first. You'd ask the question, you pop in their results, and then the CFO will follow on as well. Once you've captured the client's results, that's when the values activity starts. Now, it can be done 1 or 2 ways. So it can be done in the platform, which I'm going to be showing you here, or you've obviously got your cards as well. So that would be doing it face-to-face in person with your Lumiant deck. Before I jump in and show you how to do it in the platform, I just wanted to give a few tips if you are doing it face-to-face. So when you are using your Lumiant cards, just place them down 4 cards at a time, put them out for the non-CFO first, and then you'll follow on with the CFO. Each client, they're going to narrow down their 16 cards down to their top 5. You'll always want to start with the non-CFO first, as this ensures that the person who generally doesn't have a bit of a traditional say or have a voice, you'll be able to get them to talk first before the CFO starts talking. The platform is built so that the non-CFO is prompted to speak first, and that is captured how you set that up in your household details. So this is where you might like to introduce some rules to keep the session on track, also let the clients have a little bit of fun with it. So you might want to say as you're placing the cards down and as the clients are sorting them, we'd like you to pick your 5 cards from any color, any combination. Please do this separately. Don't look at each other's cards. There's also to be no judging, no interrupting, and most of all have a bit of fun with it. So that sort of just helps to, I guess, set the scene a little bit as well. But I'm going to be doing this on my platform here today. So first of all, what's going to happen is process is going to prompt the advisor to ask the non-CFO to select their top 5 values cards across the 8 dimensions of wellbeing. What will then happen is the client is then going to rank their top 5. So essentially they'll start on the right-hand side of the page, and the client, you'll work with them to rank from 1 to 5. From here, this is when you're going to start to unpack the top 5 values that are important to that client. So this is where you're going to start to question and really try to understand what this values card means to the client. You will be prompted with 2 questions. So what does this card mean to you, and why did you choose this particular card? Particularly with the first card, or the number 1 card, you'd want to understand why out of all 16 cards did you choose this one first? Now, sometimes clients may dodge the question, they might beat around the bush a little bit. So you really want to try and dig deep and begin to understand why. And so that's really by asking why again. Now, an example of this could be, and I pinched this off James Williamson because he gave me a good example here, is just, if they've chose maybe perhaps spend without guilt, you could then maybe say to them, well, how do you feel about the way that you spend normally? Or what would your ideal life look like if you could spend without guilt? So essentially by rewording the question in different ways, it helps to further understand your client's values and what this does mean to them. If you're still finding that you haven't quite got the client's full response, Another question that you might want to follow up with is what happened in your life, or someone that you know about that helped you or made you choose that card first. So generally, this is when you'd really then be able to understand what the client values, when you have started to push and ask a little bit more, as opposed to those first two questions. So as you're working through this, you want to add in notes as you go. You've also got the voice to text where you can capture the client's responses as well. And once you've gone through and you've unpacked what the card means to the client, that's when you'll start to ask, well, what needs to happen in the next 12 months to progress this value forward? So while you're asking this to the client and while you're capturing notes, you might notice that some goals might come out. And you can capture these as you go just by clicking on the quick goal, putting in a few notes, and then saving that. And these will be added into the goals module that you can come back to at a later stage. So you're essentially going to follow this right through. You follow the same process. You're going to spend more of your time probably on the top two. And that's because the client's going to get a bit of a feel for the flow of the process. So you'll find that the last three should hopefully speed up a little bit as well. Now, once you've done that for the non-CFO, that's when you're going to go into the CFO, and you're just going to follow the same process. So pick the top 5, rank the top 5, unpack the top 5. And then what will happen is this is where you're going to come in and actually align the values. So when you're coming into aligning the values, this is where essentially the clients are going to move from 10 cards to a joint top 5. This is why it's really important to understand the why for each card and why that's so important to the person, because this is going to help to, I guess, effectively be able to narrow down that top 10 down to the 5. In the aligning of the cards, as you get a little bit more experience, you might be able to recognize that there might be some similarities between the cards. You might notice that maybe 2 cards mean the same thing between the couple. So you can continue to sort of prompt and ask the client to order their cards and discuss why they are important. So you can say things like, does this card rank higher over the other? Why? So you can really use that as a bit of a way to facilitate the process, but you definitely don't want to make any decisions for the client. So once the top 5 have been achieved, this is when you're then going to go in and start to put a progress on that. And so it's important to capture a progress score of how the client is actually currently tracking. And a way that you might say that is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, you haven't started to do anything towards this. 10, you've already done it. How far along do you think that you are with this? So you would go in, you would set a progress, you would capture that progress score for the client. You can also ask them, why did they choose that? What needs to happen to improve this? And put some notes in as you go. So you would, skipped a bit too far back. So you would go through and you would do this for all of the values. And once you've done that, it's really important that you do set these progress scores, because it is going to be the foundations for your annual review meeting. So what will happen, come the time of your annual review meeting, this is where you're really going to prompt the client to update their progress of each value before talking through, their financial plan and what can be tweaked to further improve their well-being. And with these scores, it also does pull through into the client's well-being score. So as their progress scores are improving, their well-being score is also going to improve. And that's really going to help you to track the value of your relationship and advice with the client as well. Okay, so now that you've seen a little bit of a run through of a value session, I just want you to maybe have a little bit of a think. Maybe you've already done a value session, maybe you haven't, but out of the top 16 values cards that we do have, what do you think, you tell me if you want to put it in the chat, what's the one that is most important to you? So if you have done a value session, maybe just pop in the one that was important to you. Or if you haven't done a value session, is there a statement here that resonates with you? You just pop that in the chat. And I just want to have a bit of an idea as to where everybody sits or what's important to you. Just wait for an extra couple of seconds just to see what comes through. Spend without guilt. I can relate with that. I'm a bit of a shopaholic. Excellent, support and protect the ones that I love. Pete, love it. Nurture my relationships. Jamie, thank you. support and protect the ones that I love. So that one looks like it's coming through pretty frequently, that support and protect the ones that I love. So what I want to do is put up a bit of a poll and just throw it out to you and see, what do you think is the actual #1 values card across our Lumiant platform? Now, we've given you a bit of a head start because we could only fit 10 in the poll. So yeah, just tell us what you think is the #1 card from all of our advisors, clients that have completed this. So everyone's so far on support and protect those that I love. Haven't seen any other results come through. Oh, here we go. Be more active and healthy. Yep, I need to do that also. Pretty much nurture my relationships.
Yeah.
So there's a few different ones coming through, but it looks like the standout here is definitely that support and protect those that I love. So Mark, Mike, you're perfect. You've entered the poll. Perfect. All right, let's jump in. I'll show you what the top 5 cards are across our platform. So most people hit the nail on the head. It is support and protect those that I love. So that is the #1 card that gets chosen amongst all of the clients in the platform. We also do have feel confidence in my finances as #2, become more active and healthy, dedicate more time to those that I care about, and nurture my relationships. So these are the top 5 cards that get picked the most. So these are the ones that you're probably going to find that will be coming up in your client conversations. So to help you begin to, I guess, think about what these cards could mean to you and your clients, we have put together an article on what the value statements are in our support centre. And I've included a link at the bottom of this slide, which we'll be sharing these slides as well, to really help explain, I guess, what the value statements are, as well as some prompts as to what they might be, or questions that you could throw out to your clients when you are discussing these as well.
At least just to cut in really quickly, it's interesting when, as a financial advisor, and you're actually looking at those 5 cards, what do we do as financial advisors? And really, if you looked at that perspective, is it feel confident in my finances? Yeah, there's another 4 cards there that have nothing to do with that. So that's what values-based advice is.
Yeah, and especially the become more active and healthy. It's something that, really, not just paying for gym memberships or trying to put in a bit of a plan to back that up, but that's just something that a person wants to achieve, within themselves, that could be completely non-financial related. So it is very interesting to see the things that have come through. I guess also, if you've had an opportunity to do a value session in Lumiant, you probably have noticed that each statement that has come through, or the reason why a client has chose a values card, it can mean completely different things to your clients. So that's why it really is important to ask what that card means to them. Why did they choose it? Really break down and unpack what it means to your clients. James Wortley, I heard you provide a really great example in a recent podcast with Mark, that one of your clients chose to live in a better place as their top card, and that it meant something quite different than what you had first assumed. Could you just share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and probably one little helpful tip: don't presume anything from any clients when you're going through this process. It's fantastic just to be able to hear the responses, but to live in a better place, you would think, okay, I want to live in Mackay. Probably the gateway to the Whitsundays is probably where most people would want to go. But for this particular client, it was actually more headspace rather than physically where it was. And Mark and I spoke about this in a lot of detail in our podcast. What that card actually meant for the particular client is the history there is the client's actually been just retired, sold the business, and now has actually moved to a different place. And for him, it was all about sort of finding himself again and making sure that he was comfortable, because he's lost. Again, for those people that retire, they lose a lot. They lose their whole life for the last 30 or 40 years based on the people that they actually work with, the type of work that they're actually doing, the networking, whether it be business related or even retail. That's what they actually lose, that connection. So when you go to retiree, you've got to find what you're really passionate about in life. So that was a really unexpected conversation that we actually had for that particular card.
Yeah, and completely relatable. Yeah, when people do retire, they sort of had this great purpose, and then all of a sudden they've got all this time on their hands, and like, what am I doing? So definitely, that can become a mental place. So I think that's such a fantastic example, especially when that statement or that card, it really can mean something so different depending on that person's life situation. Fantastic example. James Williamson, I might throw to you as well. Have you got any examples that come to mind where a client chose a card, and then when you've really unpacked it, it's just means something quite different to what the statement really says?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one James just pointed out about living in a better place is the prime example of how it can go different ways. Support and protect the ones I love is an interesting one. We've had a client a couple of months ago that chose that card, and once we started unpacking it, the protect word was the key word in that statement. And then we ended up having almost a half an hour conversation about social media and children and making sure they're protected from stuff like that. So it was really completely off at a tangent. I wasn't expecting that at all. But it's why it's so important to ask these questions. And we, James and I'm sure are similar. We try and go as deep as you can. Sometimes it comes very easily for the client, and they're quite happy to open it. Sometimes you've got to dive a bit deeper, but different words mean different things to different people, and it's what's in their mind at that particular point is what's going to come out in terms of that questioning and the answers you get from it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences in that, because it's really interesting to see, and obviously you're doing this quite often every day, so you'd be seeing some really great things coming out of your client conversations. So what we wanted to do for the next 15 minutes is spend a bit of time doing a bit of a run through or a role play of a value session. In the interest of time, we obviously can't go end to end of a value session. So what we will be doing is just having each of the Jameses unpack the top values cards with myself and Mark. So based on the 5 that we've seen there, we thought we'd pick those because they're the ones that you're probably going to see come through, and just have a bit of an example of, myself or Jill going through my top card, Mark going through his top card, then looking at aligning the top card between us for our household, and then just setting a progress score on that. So what I'll do, I'm just going to share my screen. I'm just going to go back to, and this is completely unrehearsed, so it should get a pretty fair.
I've had some fun with Zoom. I've renamed this Elise. 1, because I can, and 2, it'll help us get into character.
Perfect. I'm channeling my inner Jill. All right, excellent. So let's kick off. So just for setting the scene's sake, we've already gone through, we've already picked the top, my top 5, and I'll throw it over to James Williamson and we'll start to unpack.
So, hi Jill, how are you? Thanks for picking out those cards. How did you find that going through the cards? Was it something you found easy or difficult?
I thought it was a little bit fun. You had explained to me a little bit around what we were going to be doing today. I was trying to imagine it. I couldn't really, didn't really know what to expect. Had a bit of an idea of what we're going to be doing, but yeah, I enjoyed the experience, and it definitely made me think a little bit more.
Yeah, that's good. Is this something you've not done before?
No.
Yeah, okay,
me and John have never come in and had an advice appointment before.
Okay, so we've obviously got those values. We've picked out the order of those now. So give me a little bit of an understanding of why that support and protect those I love stood out to you amongst all the others.
I would say that it stood out a little bit. We've got a few family things happening at the moment, health issues, things like that. So I think just because that's happening, I think, it just resonated the most.
And is that why you picked it as number 1? Did it jump out sort of more than the other 4 by a long way?
Yeah, I would just say, given what's happening at the moment, yeah.
Okay. In terms of the actual card, though, can you give me give me a little bit more detail on why it's important to you and why it sort of resonated with you?
Yeah. So Similar to when we completed the Your Life survey, referring back to last time's role play. Yeah, look, my sister's not well. I just want to be able to help her. She's got small children, my nieces and my nephews. So I just want to be there for them in any way I can.
Absolutely. And I always try and get an understanding, because it's a support and protect can mean different things to different people. This sounds a bit more like a support thing rather than necessarily a protect thing. Would that be fair, or are there elements to both? Do the words mean different things to you from a family point of view?
I think, that's a really good question. I think protect, I kind of think, her kids are really small.
Sure.
So it's important. They obviously don't really understand what's going on. So to protect them in that sense, like maybe emotionally. Support, I want to be there for them to help them do things around the house, maybe like financially if I can. So yeah, I think there's quite a bit going on in that. So
physically, emotionally, and financially?
Yeah, yep. Okay. That's probably, I've got a lot on my plate. I think that's why I picked that one number one.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So obviously there's a fair bit there. So if I said to you, what are the key things we could do right now to, move forward or progress on that? Is there anything you can think of you could do almost immediately that would help you take that next step towards try and progress this?
I really would be able to dedicate a bit more time to help, whether that be, looking after the kids, babysitting nights, around the house. I think that would be important. Just being able to help, time financially. I think, setting the more time aside would be helpful.
And that's something you think you've got the time to do? You're going to make some time to do that, you think?
Look, to be honest, I think I need to prioritize that. Probably have just been trying to do bits and pieces where I can, but I really would like to prioritize that.
So if in 12 months' time, where would you like this to be? Apart from the fact, obviously, you want your sister to be in a better place, of course. Is this something that, that support that you're going to give to your sister is something you want to continue down the line? Yeah,
definitely. Until she gets better, I think it's important to do that. So even if I, can put a whole day away or weekends to go over to their house, or a few hours each afternoon, I think that's important.
So this might be something that we look at initially and then we revisit down the line together.
Yeah, perfect.
Great. That's great, Jill. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. All right, excellent. So if you're happy, if I move on, James Williamson, and we'll jump into John. I'm just going to skip through. Okay. So John, then we've got James Wortley to unpack that a little bit more for you.
Hi, John. One of the questions I asked is, how did you feel about Jill's 5 questions? Did anything surprise you?
Look, we've spoken about her sister and providing support to their family a couple times. I didn't realise it was so important to her. In particular, going number one. Because, we've got other things that we often talk about as well. So it was a bit of a shock maybe, for me to sort of know that that's the most important thing. It's not something that I'd sort of felt before.
Yeah, and this is why we love having these conversations with our clients, because they're really making sure that clients are really honest with us to have a good understanding. And what we also find is sometimes the spouses haven't had those discussions in relation to what their values are. So talking about your values. So feel confident in my finances. Why did you pick that particular card, and why is that important to you?
Yeah, I mean, going second, it feels a little bit selfish now, but for me, it just seemed like the obvious choice, James. It's the reason we're here. We just want to get confident in what we're doing.
Okay. So what does confident mean to you?
Gee, I mean, isn't that what everyone really wants? I'm the breadwinner of the house. So, I want to make sure that we've got confidence. And to me, that just means that we can, decide things and we can, do things like invest the money that we're speaking about you with.
And why is that important to you?
Yeah, we've got some important goals in our life. So I suppose
can you give me a little bit to understand what those goals are?
Yeah, well, I mean, now, knowing we've got to support Jill's sister potentially. But, there's things for us closer to home as our family expands as well, and renovating our house. We want to do all those sort of things.
Okay. And do you have any other financial goals that come back to that confidence in your finances?
None that can really come to mind. They're the major ones for now. Obviously, further on, we might have some, but they're the most important ones right now.
Yeah. If I can maybe even rephrase one of the questions, like feeling confident in your finances, is there something in your life or in any of your family's lives that sort of moved you towards this particular card?
Oh, yeah, okay. When I think about it, and it's probably something I don't like speaking about too much, and Jill knows bits of it as well. But for me, I lost my parents, 10 years ago, and it's when Jill and I started going out, and I love the life we've built together, Jill and I, but it's probably that event, if you go back, where I realized, and now even hearing Jill's response about her sister, that it's probably on me as the breadwinner to make sure that I can facilitate all the things that are important to us. I feel like that's something I need to do with Jill, because quite frankly, I've got no parents or other support system to sort of fall back on. So that's probably what I come back to is, I've got to feel confident that I can do all those things, because if it's not me, it's bust in my head.
Yeah. And why is that particularly important to you? Obviously, unfortunately, you lost your parents, but why is that really important to you deep in your heart?
Yeah, well, they helped us out a little bit 10 years ago, and I've sort of seen them, work on their relationship and sort of build this great life up until they passed away. I want to do the same for Jill and I. And the big thing for me, and it's the reason I work so hard to get the income that I've got, is I don't want to let Jill down either. So I want to make sure that we can do all those things, and I don't have to have the awkward conversation that we can't do the things that Jill wants to do and I want to do.
Oh, that's great. And you just mentioned, your parents helped you out. In what ways did they help you out?
So we got a little inheritance 10 years ago. It just sort of helped us get into our first property together. But that's sort of something that's always been left with me, that I don't know. It's odd, but I feel like I owe them to do something with that. And now I want to transition that into my life with Jill.
Oh, that's great. And thanks for being so honest. Is now just summarising that, what do you think you need to do over the next 12 months to progress this value that you can actually really feel confident in your finances? Yeah,
it's a good point. Yeah, I've never really thought about it too much, obviously. But as I was sort of hearing myself, the key things that are on my mind now are all the stuff we told you we want to do with that investing of the money. So making sure that we can rent out our house and, plan to build our family. Just knowing that we can do that. And if how at risk that is will give me a ton of peace of mind. I kill myself at work day in, day out, thinking that if I'm not doing this work, then we will never be able to do these things. So just being able to be really clear that provided I can keep that income, or even at worst, I can drop income if I work less, would let me feel a little bit better about where life's at right now.
Yeah. And do you enjoy your job?
Yeah, I love my job. I wouldn't put in the hours that I do without loving it, I guess.
And your life-work balance is what you're happy with?
I don't know. It's probably a question more for Jill. I don't think. I think I hope she'd like me home more. I probably spend a bit too much time at work, but as I said, I do it for a reason, to make sure that we can do those things.
Oh, thank you. And this is what our job as a financial advisor, to be able to understand, look, this is what's really important to you, but that's our job, is to make sure, because there's a lot of goals that have just come out there when we're talking about renovations, there's investment options, having that peace of mind, which is really critical for all our clients. So that's the one thing that we can do, is actually show you this is where you are today, understand what your goals are and what your journey looks like, so we can actually help you live your best life, but then have that good understanding that you're actually on the road to what you want to achieve.
That'd be perfect.
That, John.
Yeah, cheers.
Perfect. Thank you. Now, we'll go through we've got the aligning and we've also got setting the progress score. I'm just conscious of time. We might have to do this one super quick. So we will be super quick in deciding, but obviously this is going to take a bit of time for your clients. So James Williamson, I might throw it to you. Now, obviously we've sort of set some of this up. I'm just going to move that back so we actually don't have a top one.
Okay, so John, Jill, you've obviously picked out your cards. We've come together on 4 of them. We've got 1 left. What's that going to be, that top card, do you think, between you? You pick? I think I know what it is.
Well, after hearing John's story and how much he feels pressure to, work and be the breadwinner and support me, and I feel a little bit guilty a bit. I know that I'm putting all of this emphasis on supporting, my sister with the time and things like that. John, how do you feel?
I mean,
it's pretty important.
Yeah, well, hearing yours, I don't want to feel like I'm winning, for lack of a better term, but I feel like it could stretch both of our intents. So if you as our planner can figure out that we can do all those things, I think that'll give us joint confidence. Jill, would you agree?
I agree. Like, I kind of think like if our finances if we're confident in our finances and you're not feeling too much pressure to be at work, and that allows me maybe some time to take a couple of extra hours off, maybe go part-time or something, then we can kind of really, hit both of our top cards.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously that confidence in your finance might give you that time, Jill, to allow you to do what you want to do as well, which is what you obviously was your number 1 card as well, and obviously John's number 1 card was this. So trying to find some alignment on that is obviously really, really important. Really, just one thing I just want. What sort of things will you be looking at to feel more confident over the next 12 months? The key things you want to say, well, if we get this right, we're going to feel a bit more confident.
Since we have never been to a financial planner before, even having like a bit of an understanding about our finances, and John, you were saying how, you want to do good with the money that your parents have left us, or left you before we met. Just making sure we've got like something sound so we know we're on track. Yeah. I can spend time with my family.
Yeah, I think that's key for me. Look, I'm a process sort of guy. So if you can say to us as a result of this that we need to do A, B, C steps to tick all our goals, then I would say that if I can tick those things off, I'll know that will give me the sense of confidence I'm looking for, because I don't know what I don't know.
Well, that's something we can assess in that 12-month period, isn't it? We can actually go through that and say, and I use the word, do you feel more confident now than you did 12 months ago? Right. Great. Fantastic. Love when clients answer their own questions.
Just in the interest of time, might just do this one super quick.
Super
James,
quick. Super quick. So for you, Jill and John, a score out of 10, where do you think you are feeling with your confidence in your finances?
I don't know about you, John. I'm sort of feeling maybe like a 4 or a 5.
I was pretty low. I was thinking 4 or 5 as well. I mean, I can't tell you what I told you and say that I feel any higher than that, to be brutally honest.
Okay, and when you actually got scores like that, we don't want to take you to a 10 straight away, because there'd be a lot of things that you'd need to be able to do. So what are the couple of things that you might be able to do to feel more confident to get to a 6 or a 7?
Sorry, Jill, but for me, it's just get started. Just get started. Whatever you guys, sort of tell us at the end of this, I'm pretty keen to just get into it, really.
Yeah, so build a plan. So Jill, for you?
Yeah, build a plan and then map out if I can, now that I think about it, take some time off work or reduce hours but just, I don't want that to impact on me and John. So I don't want him to feel like he's under the pump so I can take some time off. So yeah, just come up with a bit of a sound plan around budget and what we can do.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. So that was a very quick crash course on doing a value session. So I'll just power through just in the interest of time to give some more time for questions and answers. So as you've seen with what we've gone through and done today, there's many techniques that you can use to really uncover what that value means to the client. You've already got 2 great questions. What does that card mean? Why did they choose that particular card? We've got 3 other examples that you might want to try. What's important about X to you? What does X look like to you? Tell me more about what made you pick X. I won't go into drawing more examples from yourself, James and James, just given the interest of time. But James, you had already picked out a really good example that we had uncovered with Mark Tucci, and something that has worked with him, in the past as well, which is to really get into that deep understanding around what that value means to the client. And if you're feeling like they're beating around the bush and you're not kind of getting that response that you were thinking, you can really try that powerful question: what happens in your life or the life of someone that you care about that made you pick that number 1 or whatever card it is that they're at the moment. So we have recorded that podcast. I'll show you where you can find that at the end of this webinar. I guess one thing that I did want to quickly ask though, in the interest of time, is that how do you know, and I'll throw this to both of the Jameses, how do you know when you have, I guess, got either when you're pushed too far or you've got that last question that this is the goal that I was looking for?
Cool. It's really a feel thing, I think. You seem to know if someone's being honest with you or whether they're trying to avoid the question. As I say, I just try and use their own words back to them. Use a lot of pausing, let them talk so we can listen, and really trying to, I suppose, re-examine the words in the card and use them in a different way back to them. And I think you then get a real sense of whether they're telling you an honest answer or whether they're just skirting around the outside.
And as financial advisors, we do really well. We read people well when we're actually talking to them. We always know where that point is. Like for me, I do think that one extra uncomfortable question actually works really well with me. I think there's a lot more gold when you're actually just pushing that little bit more. But again, you really got to be measured in relation to the personality that you're actually talking to. But when you feel uncomfortable, if you go one more question just to ask that why, it sometimes is where you actually really get the gold out of it. So that's yeah.
And I think you've done a really great example showing how you do that when you were talking to Jack. Forgot your name already. Sorry, husband.
Wow, shame of a marriage.
All right, excellent. Now we are a little bit short on time for questions and answers. I just wanted to check to see if there is any quick questions that you wanted to put into the chat. Please put them through. We can always come back to you at the end of the session if there's anything that we haven't uncovered or given you the opportunity to add in. So please feel free to put in some chats while we just go through and wrap up. Essentially what's next, so you will get a copy of today's webinar. You're also going to get the slides. I'm also going to send you a Lumiant activity that you can use to practice that art of asking why with your friends, family, colleagues. As we mentioned, we also do have a Lumiant Live podcast, and we've got our recent episode, The Art of Discussing Values with Mark Tucci, which we've all referred to today. So you can get that on Spotify, also on Apple Podcast. Plus also the Jameses that we've had here today as well. You'll be able to see past episodes that have been recorded with them and just find out a little bit more around their experience and how they've been finding doing the value sessions as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Jump onto the support centre if you need access to more resources. There is going to be a survey at the end of this. Would really appreciate your feedback because we want to make sure that the topics that we're covering, that this is, I guess, hitting the nail on the head. If we've missed anything, if you still need help with doing a value session after going through this webinar, please let us know where you need help, what it is that you want us to discuss, and we'll make sure that we cover that off in some training or a future webinar that we've got. And the next webinar that we've got coming up is going to be turning values into goals. So essentially the next step on from what we've just covered here as well. Thank you to the Jameses for joining us as well. I really appreciate you jumping in and providing all of your knowledge as well.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Haven't seen any other questions come through.
No, but maybe I might, let's take the opportunity while we got the experts to ask one. I think, Elise, a common one that we get is, how do you manage time? So values can go quite long. But both Jameses, one, does the time in a values discussion worry you? And if you are trying to rein it in, do you have any tips for people trying to sort of hold account to time?
I'll jump in here really quickly for this one, because it's something that I've been able to manage pretty successfully. I can do a values conversation in about an hour. I know I've spoken to a lot of advisors that sometimes they're 2-3 hours. It's critical that you make sure you set the rules with the clients, because if you don't set that rule of, okay, when we're talking to one person, the other person is not to say anything. When they start talking, the conversation starts to drag out and you lose control of the situation. So again, it's making sure that you've got that information. The other one is parking a conversation. If there's a lot more there, just saying, look, yeah, that's all right, we'll pick this up in a quick goal so we come back to that at our next meeting. So that's a good way of just saying, look, this is really critical. You need to make sure that you're actually saying to the client, this is really important to you. We're not going to forget about it or pass over it. But yeah, we've highlighted this and we will come back and talk about this in our next meeting.
Good tip. James Williamson, doing anything different?
Yeah, we're about an hour to an hour and 20 at the moment, I reckon, in terms of how we're doing it. I think when we started, we were about, I think the first one we did, or the second one, I think was about 2.5 hours or something ridiculous like that. But getting a lot quicker now.
Yeah, it might just be it's a process thing. I think as you sort of found, you get really good at your questions and you know how you pinpoint straight away.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, cool. No, I think no further questions, Elise.
Yep, I haven't seen anything else come through. Look, if you've got any other questions, please feel free to either send myself an email or just sing out to support and we can make sure we get that addressed as well. Apologies that we ran out of time for a full chat there. All right, excellent. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.